Welcome back. So we're off to this conversation now. The Health Minister, Dr Musa Gumede, says that he's consulting his legal team. This is following an independent report exposing the racial profiling of black healthcare providers by certain medical schemes. The Council for Medical Schemes commissioned the investigation after allegations surfaced that claims were withheld based on race and ethnicity. Musa Gumede has also encouraged affected black practitioners to pursue legal action. Let's now have that conversation with, we're having that conversation with Dr Musa Gumede, who's the Chief Executive and Registrar for the Council for Medical Schemes. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Let's start off here. So the Board of Healthcare Funders has issued a statement following the release of the report. I just want to quote it quickly and want to hear your response to it, Dr. Gumede. We still need to study the final report. However, we are disappointed that the Section 59 inquiry panel has confirmed that it has upheld the findings made in the interim report released in 2021. We believe that these findings are demonstrably and fundamentally flawed, and if allowed to stand, will open the door for runaway fraud and corruption in the healthcare sector. How do you respond to that?
Thank you for having us here. I think firstly we are relieved that after 5 years of the investigation, we've now come to the end of this issue in terms of a final report being produced. We are not surprised by the statement, considering that the BHF is an association of medical schemes. Therefore, if the report points at some issues with how medical schemes have behaved, I would expect that they either accept or they push back on some of the areas. So it's not a real surprise. But like all of us, we only received the report yesterday, and therefore we're all going to study the report going forward and comment on it and take decisions based on what was produced yesterday.
Yeah, and what the report's findings, again, as the BHF has said, that these are findings that were also made in 2021. But what it does is that it affirms the views that have been held amongst medical practitioners, specifically black medical practitioners, that the conduct of medical schemes is also having an impact on their practitioners. Or practices,
yes, we were approached by groups of medical providers, mostly GPs, who indicated that when schemes use Section 59 of the Medical Schemes Act, basically Section 59 of the Medical Schemes Act is about payment. It allows schemes and providers to pay each other. That's one section of that. The second section allows that should happen within 30 days. And then the 59.3, which is the core of this issue, then talks about what if you have paid, a scheme has paid a provider for a bona fide reason, and then discovers that there was either fraud, waste, and abuse. And then this 59.3 allows the schemes to then claw back. What has happened is that in the views of those who complained, the schemes were not procedurally fair, and they were arbitrarily doing it and compromised service providers. There was no process in place on how they would check if what they were saying was correct. Then the providers basically felt that the schemes were the accusers. They would then become the judge, and they would become the jailer. And this meant that the providers had no recourse for such an action. And this resulted in some people losing their practices, others even taking their lives, because some of the amounts were huge and meant that the people were suddenly in debt. So that resulted in those providers approaching us as the Council for Medical Schemes and the Minister to say, please protect us. We feel that we're being discriminated. These were black providers who felt this was happening mainly to black providers. And so we commissioned this panel, which has taken 5 years, came with an interim report in 2021 suggesting the same results which have come out now. And then after that 2021, they gave an opportunity to the industry, including schemes, to rebut what they had put forward. And when they got more information, they then confirmed that what they found in 2021 was actually true. So now the process is to try and find a solution for that. They have also found, secondly, that there is an allegation of racial discrimination which was made by these providers is correct, is true. So now they have made some recommendations on how we should close the procedural unfairness, basically through legislation, where we need to put a process in place as to how Section 59.3 should be processed. In fact, giving both sides an opportunity, being fair, being transparent, and knowing steps that should be taken to deal with that issue. And secondly, on the discrimination, because what has happened is that there are algorithms, there are tools, there are softwares used by schemes, which are used to actually identify fraud, waste, and abuse. What we don't know is what constitutes those algorithms. Only the schemes know what is there. So they have found that that needs to be transparent as well, so that everyone understands the basis for the algorithms. Because in their panel investigation, they've discovered that if you were a black, for instance, black dental therapists, they took GEMS there to task in saying that if you had black dental therapists, there were 3.7 times chances of you being fingered for fraud than any other race. And if you were a black psychiatrist, they looked at discovery claims, you were 3.44 times more likely to be pointed out for fraud as well. And if you were a black anesthetist, they looked at med scheme claims, you were 6.39 more likely to be accused of fraud. So this suggested that the algorithms and the risk ratios were discriminatory. And they proposed that there we either open up those algorithms for everyone to know voluntarily by schemes. And if schemes are not voluntarily opening up on those algorithms, they then proposed that the CMS, the Council for Schemes, then takes a legal route, basically legislation, and then we own those types of IQ, so that we are able to deal with these issues on behalf of the industry on a transparent basis, and therefore legislate as to how it should happen. So those are some of the suggestions that have come forward, and we are going to have this report tabled at our council so that it pronounces its view on it. There are areas which require the minister to act and put a regulation to assist us. And there are areas where we have already started on fraud, waste, and abuse tribunals, and we're working with schemes on that. And then the rest of the report will then pronounce on what happens going forward.
All right. I just quickly want to play this clip from what the minister had to say yesterday about the next steps in relation to these findings, and then we'll conclude our conversation.
Now, some of the facts that came out which are painful is the fact that some doctors had to close their practices. Of course, if you close your practice, you are going to lose everything you own. Some of them were made to sign debts, which they will never be able to pay in their lifetime. So these are very, very difficult and heartbreaking findings. But I think individuals who went through this, who lost, must litigate in their own right. While I'm still studying the report, I did consult a few lawyers to find who has got a local standard. If somebody must litigate, it's people who have got local standard, who are the individual practitioners who have lost everything.
Yeah, and Dr. Gumede, I wonder then from the council side, is there any legal action that you can take against the medical schemes?
It's premature for me to pronounce on that before the council pronounces on the whole report, including such areas. But our focus will be to try and review the legislation that empowers us to regulate, make sure that we have teeth to get into those areas which caused problems in the past, to prevent future occurrences of the same, and to make sure that there is transparency in the industry. Obviously, the panel also suggested that technology has surpassed our legislation, and we need to improve in some areas in our legislation in order to deal with technological AI and a lot of other tools that have come forward that are used by the industry to do these risk ratios and understand them and include them in the practice of medicine. So that is the approach we're using, and they will pronounce on what the finally outcome is of that discussion.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Musa Gumede is the Chief Executive and Registrar for the Council for Medical Schemes. This is following the report that was released yesterday that has found that there is racial profiling when it comes to paying out claims being made by medical practitioners, and the victims are generally black medical practitioners.